Well, avid readers, I'm so excited because I have my friend back again to talk about her second in the series novel. But before we get to that, Linda Dindzans, welcome. And why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Well, it's nice to see you again, Trisha. Um, what to say? I've been 12 years retired. I retired from medicine to learn to write fiction. It was a 12-year journey to publication. My first book came out last August, and
Wow.
it's just been a journey and a very interesting journey. Met lots of new, interesting people and friends. Uh, a totally different discipline in some ways, but it's also a discipline. So enjoying the creativity in the fourth quarter.
I love that. Okay, so the first book was A Certain Man,
Correct.
and then book two is A Certain Mercy. These are biblical fiction around the people interacting with Jesus. And you talk about being, retiring from the medical field, you're a doctor. There is so much healing that happens in these novels. Let's just talk a little bit about that, and then I want to get into some of the details about the second novel.
Yes, I would agree. I think that without sort of consciously doing this, I wanted to tell a good story. And
Hmm.
I think that all good stories ultimately are redemptive stories. That's what we're all
Hmm.
looking for is redemption, no matter what our faith background. And so it became a redemptive story, and that through that there becomes healing. Um, and I just feel that part of the reason I write biblical fiction is because it's the only thing that comes to me. You
Yeah.
know, I don't know. There are many people that write cross genre right now. This is the only thing coming to me, but I do think that it also gives the opportunity for people to face universal truths
Hmm.
in a way that may be more comfortable for them when it's set in a time that isn't contemporary, because there's really nothing new under the sun, and we all struggle with the same things that they struggled with back then. And I think also it maybe gives people a chance to think about how they would have felt if they were living back then. How would they have reacted to these things that are happening around them?
Absolutely. And you don't shy away from tough topics. So, this new book has the woman caught in adultery,
Mhm.
her story. We also have like the Good Samaritan story, like that interaction. Then we have some of the other people interacting with Jesus. And it's like, okay, I always love to read without reading the back cover because if I read the back cover, my mind's already like plotting it in my own head. So all of a sudden I'm like, "Oh, this is the woman caught in adultery." Then I'm like, "Oh, this is the Good Samaritan story." Then, "Oh, Joanna, I recognize this." So it's so fun for me to see all these people interacting, which they would have. Like these are people that were walking with Jesus, that are interacting with Jesus. So of course we hear from the Gospels different pieces of the story, but they probably would know each other. But again, you don't shy away from these tough topics. Why did you choose, for example, the women caught in adultery to be the main character of this novel?
Well, because partly her story is only told in about 4 lines. So
Hmm.
that gives me lots of room for fiction.
Right.
Um, and but yet, I want to stay true to what I feel Jesus would have said and done. And so I'm trying to be really careful about when I elaborate and when I don't. But I think many people for years have wondered about her, and many women in particular have wondered about her. I mean, where was the man that she was
Exactly.
caught
Yeah.
with? I mean, so this kind of attempts to fill in a possibility of what was really going on here. The other thing that, in my research and study of things, realized like how were they trying to actually snare Jesus? Because, that for them to come to him for judgment would have been unusual. I mean, he's an itinerant rabbi. What they were trying to do is to make him commit, put him in a catch 22, where if he said
Hmm.
she should be stoned, then everything he's taught about mercy goes out the window. And if he says she should go free, then he's advocating breaking the law. So they've got him in this catch 22. And what he does brilliantly is he puts them in their own catch 22, because under the law, what happened is they dragged her there. The Pharisees dragged her there, but they had no official accuser. So
Mhm.
that was not appropriate, and they also did not have 2 witnesses. They said she was caught in adultery, but they did not have 2 witnesses. So when he literally says, "If you cast a stone, let those who are without sin cast the first stone," what he's saying to them is, "If you cast a stone at her, you have broken the law." So he's caught them in a very unusual way. And then I think many pastors have given sermons about what was written in the sand. I mean, what he wrote had to be fairly short because it was in a short amount of time. And so I again have written what he wrote in the sand, but I also wanted to be careful because it's not recorded in the Bible. So I
Right.
make it so that only she sees it, so that it still remains part of the fictions and part of the fictitious story and doesn't add to, but it's symbolic to her. And I think it suits the mood of the moment and pulls the story together. So that's the fun of the fiction part of it.
Right. But what I love too is that like you did your research so what the law said. Okay, so we're going back to if we're going to stone her, what is the requirements? What does the law say? Because we know the Pharisees added their own laws to a
Mhm.
lot of things.
Right.
But if you go back to the law given to Moses and everything, like there was things that were laid out without all the stuff that they added on. So of course Jesus knows what those laws were.
Right.
The Pharisees know what those laws were, and so I love that because I was like, "Oh, I didn't know that he was also catching them. That it
Mhm.
wasn't just they're trying to catch Jesus, but he turns it around on them." And of course, the older men who know or more familiar with the law, they're going to leave first, and they're going to realize that. So I was just like reading, and going, "Okay, this is really good." But it's very, very clear that you had to do a lot of research. And for many years, I'm like, I'm gonna write everything, but not biblical fiction because
Mhm.
that's a lot. I ended up writing biblical fiction, but
Mhm.
let's talk a little bit about your research because it's so clear that you've captured the time period, that what was going on with the Pharisees, with the ordinary people, with the Romans, with the rulers. I mean, all those things. You touch every single layer, which is also super interesting, but a lot of work. So tell me about that.
Well, I think part of what happens with my research, unlike other writers, is I have to do research as I go along. Many people
Mm,
say get the story down. Well, I kind of get the big beats in my mind, although I'm very much a pantser, so I don't really know. Things get added or changed. But as I'm writing, I have to sometimes say, would they have done this? Or what is the law here? Or what was the. So I have to research as I go along. Um, like, for instance, at one point, I have a chariot scene. Well, was there a hippodrome at this particular time in Caesarea? I have to know that before I write a whole chariot scene.
right.
So,
Yeah, I mean, and I think, but actually, I think that's also a good way to do it because I think sometimes some people may never get around to writing their novels because they're so busy researching everything, and then they have so much information that they get confused and they try to, yeah. So I do actually do like that you kind of just go where the spirit leads. Like this,
mhm,
I guess we're going here now. Let me research this.
right.
But it does take a lot. So I would just love to hear like where do you go to find all this research and how do you dig in? Because I think just even seeing the reviews for your first book, people really appreciate that how true to life, but also true to history your books are.
Mhm. Um, well, I do go online a lot, but then I
Mhm.
also go to secondary resources. So, like, even Wikipedia is not bad if you go to the resource and check that the primary
Right.
resource. But there's
Mhm.
also something called journal storage, JSTOR, where you can put in topics, and even for free, you can download a certain number of articles per month. So um, you can get journal articles
Mhm.
from, and I found that to be a good source. And then, there are also Bible commentaries and all kinds of things. So I have like shelves and shelves of books. I have a whole book on Herodias. So um, it's just a wide variety. And the other thing is all the rows, Bible charts, Bible maps, all those are very. good resources too.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes people say, "Well, I don't know if the Bible's true." Well, there's this resource that's not a non-biblical resource that talks about the same thing. Like, and everything is just so confirmed over and over again through history. It doesn't just have to be this is what the Bible says, which although we do believe the Bible is true, there's so many outside, like you got journals or
Right.
learning about Herodias. I mean, all these different things all tie into making it, I mean, showing that the Bible is true, and then we just get to dig deeper and deeper into the levels as because they're also these sources are told from different points of view. It's not only the biblical writers that are writing about these events, but other historians through the ages have also written about these events.
Right, and I keep discovering new resources. Like there's a magazine called "Let the Stones Speak," and it's basically biblical archaeology. Well, um, and this is many, many years ago now. That for a long time, historians said, the Bible. There's no evidence that Pontius Pilate ever existed. He's mentioned all over the Bible, but there's no evidence that he ever existed. Well, my husband and I were fortunate enough in 2019, we were able to go to Israel, and we were in Caesarea, not Caesarea Philippi, but Caesarea on the maritime, on the sea. And they pointed out what had been discovered probably, I think it's about 20 years ago now. It's called the Pilate Stone. And what it
Oh wow.
was that Pontius Pilate had dedicated a temple to Caesar, and there's this stone that basically says his name, says he was the prefect of Judea, which is exactly how he's referred to in the Bible. And so it was actually confirmation that he existed. And so there are many times biblical archaeology is starting to uncover more and more that proves the accuracy of the Bible. And the the biblical writers were accurate. I mean, Luke was a physician and Paul was a lawyer, and they were very accurate and trying to be accurate in what they were recording.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I love it. So tell me about your main characters in this novel.
the main character in this novel starts out, her name is Zara, and at one point she changes it to Zera, Zera. And she is, I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but her
I
main
know it's so hard talking
Yeah,
about it, but
yeah.
yes.
Her main problem is that she as a young girl, she was married at around age 16 to her husband, and for the first few years of their marriage, it was a very happy marriage. And then, he became addicted to gambling, and
Mhm.
many forms of gambling, but particularly the chariot races. And so he began to neglect her because he became obsessed with the next bet. She fortunately was an only daughter and was her father saw that this was happening. And so he set up for a steward to take over her money when he passed away rather than her husband, which is the way it would have
Yeah.
normally gone. And so that sets up a lot of conflict. And he still comes and takes her jewelry for the next bet. And so there's a lot of contention there, but she has also been neglected for over 3 years. And one of the things that I discovered in my research is there was actually within the law a requirement that the husband had to visit the chambers of his wife periodically because otherwise he was denying her a chance at children. And
Mhm.
since many of them were older than their wives because of the way the society was set up, the likelihood that he would pass away before she and leave her a widow with no children to support her, no sons to support her, was considered wrong.
Mhm.
So he actually had also broken the law by not visiting her for 3 years. So that's kind of an interesting side bit as well. But then, so she's conflicted because she then finds someone who pays attention to her and she becomes attracted. And then, what is her choice? There's, I think, a line early in the book that says she's an honorable woman whose soul is torn in two directions.
Right. So, yeah, we don't wanna give too much away. Too much away, but it's really, really good. So, was it easier to write the second book than it was the first one, or was the first book easier to write?
Um, I don't know if easier is the right word. The first book took me about 2.5 years to write.
Mhm.
Um, and because I just didn't really know how to finish a book and all those kinds of things that happened with the first book. The second book, I had to write more quickly because I was under deadline. And so it was a more difficult in a way because I didn't feel like I had as finished of a first version when I had my beta readers read it. And I have very good beta readers who were very honest and they were like, some things need work here. And so I had to do more rewriting and revision. And but they were
Right.
absolutely right about the kinds of things that they were saying needed to be. So ultimately, I feel like the second book is as good, perhaps better, because I think it reads it's an easier flow through the book. Um, and I like both stories. The it took me a long time to find I knew even up till close to deadline, I didn't have the right ending. And
Hmm.
I work with a writing coach and an editor, and um, I was struggling for the right ending, but we all pushed through and prayed about it, and I do think that the right and when you have the right ending,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
So
Oh, well, I'm not there yet. I'm only in chapter 14, so
that
I have to see what the ending is,
right.
which is so good. Okay, so is there gonna be a book 3? That's
Yes,
gonna tie
yes,
in?
it's a 3-book
Okay.
contract, and that one is called A Certain Refuge, and I need to get
Ooh.
going on that one.
And
So, that I'm in the process of plotting that, and,
which is so funny, it's like, okay, you talk about 12 years ago, you started writing 2.5 years to write the book 1, then it's even quicker, you have to write book 2, and now once you get under contract like this, it's what a lot of people don't realize, it's like you are still promoting well, you promoted the second one, but also still, like, maybe promoting the first one, but
right,
then you have to start plotting and writing the third one. And that is the challenge where,
right,
yes, wonderful, 3-book contract. Wait, 3-book contract.
right,
So
right.
how are you handling the balance of all that?
I'm learning how to do that. I'm still in the process of learning, and I think my main concern is to keep the quality,
Hmm.
and fortunately, I think that my publisher also wants quality, and so I will do my absolute best to get this done on time, but I think, if it's not to the point that I feel comfortable, I think they would give me grace. But I'm very much a rule follower, so I want to meet deadline.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, and it's a matter of sometimes just going into your writing cave and spending a lot of time.
Hmm. And I think sometimes when you have to push through, that's kind of where God shows up. We can't fiddle with the words. We just have to pray hard and write
Right.
fast. So
Well, and but we were at a conference together
yes, we
last
just saw each other last weekend.
night at ScrivCon, and um, one of the speakers was talking about how she had some incredibly small amount of hours. I think she did like 35,000 words in something like 16 hours, and it sounds like the book was quite good. And so, yes, that's a God thing.
I have not done that much. I think the most I've done was like 8,000 in a day. That was a lot.
Yeah,
Like, that was a lot. It's
yeah,
just typing, 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 and kind of you don't really have a choice to you just have to finish it and,
right,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
So it's all learning, and I was actually particularly interested in the people that were talking about dictating. I'm not a good typist at all, and so I think that might be an option for me to help speed me up a little
Oh, yeah,
bit too. So,
yeah. It's
but
all
up
these
till
little
now,
tricks and stuff.
it sounds like some of these dictation to text are really quite accurate now, so you don't have to go back so much to correct everything. So that may I think that's gonna be something that I'll be exploring.
Yeah, you're like, let me look into this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
All right, so I know this book, as we're talking, has not released yet, but again, I was looking at your Amazon page and all the wonderful reviews, and God put this on your heart years ago to write stories, to write books. What is it like when you hear from someone or you read a review to know that someone out there who you've never met before has a closer relationship with God or feels more connected with the Bible than ever? How does that feel as an author, knowing that even though the path wasn't easy, to see kind of that result?
Yes, I've had several times when people have actually told me, various things, and, it very much confirms for me that this is my calling. It's a
Mhm.
confirmation. I mean, there are times when, you get discouraged. I don't think even when I've been discouraged, I've ever thought that it was I feel like I'm meant to be doing this. But there are times when it's like, "This is hard." You know? "What am I doing? And how come it isn't coming faster?" And, um, all those things. But then when you hear something like that and actually, early on, I decided that I would not read my own reviews.
Oh, okay.
And there are actors and actresses that don't do that either. And I felt like, for me, and maybe now I will more. I've read some of them because they've come up in front of me for whatever reason, or because someone online has said how much they like the book. But I just felt like it might either discourage me or puff me up, and I didn't want either. And the
Mhm.
other thing is that I really don't look at my book sales. I figure that's the publisher's problem. My
Yeah.
problem is just to simply try to create the best book and market it as best as I know how and leave. But I have had people talk with me now that I'm doing more appearances. Um, I've had people come up and tell me, essentially give me a verbal review. And I had a man at church tell me that he was on a plane and he was reading the book. And at the end of the first book, he said, "I was just sobbing." And the
Oh.
man in the window seat leaned over and said, "What are you reading?" I had an opportunity to tell him about it and to tell him about the story. So
Well, that's a good review right there, and that's
yes.
spreading word of mouth. If
Yeah.
and really, and I tell people when I teach writing, our job is to stir those emotions, like whether it's laughing or crying or gratitude or whatever. I mean, we think a book is boring if our emotions aren't stirred. So I love that, and I don't think there could be a better review to have someone sobbing as they're reading your book, because you know that it's more than just words on the page. It's really touching their heart and their emotions and really going deep. So that's beautiful.
Well, the woman who I work with as a writing coach, Margie Lawson, says, and I love this. And I try to remember it. She says, if you're writing well, the reader is becoming the point of view character. They're not
Hmm.
just interested; they are actually becoming that point of view character. So then, if you write a visceral response, they should be having that same visceral response.
Yeah. Which that's good writing right there. I love that. And I also love that, I mean, so many people say, "Oh, I'm going to write a book someday." And it's not like I would say, "Well, I'm going to go practice medicine someday." Right? It takes a lot of training. It takes a lot of, I mean, I mean, so you had to go to school to become a doctor for many, many years. And then you put in many years into, writing. So talk about that a little bit, because I think some people just think you could just sit down and just write a book and it's going to turn out fine. But we wouldn't think about that as
Right.
practicing medicine or anything else out there.
Well, I had this story coming to me, which it grew out of control, and so I put it down. I'll go back to it. But um, when I first thought, I wanted to try to write this story that was coming to me, somebody asked me, "How long do you think it'll take you to write a book?" And I said, "Well, I think if I spend basically kind of like a full time job, it'll be about 2 years." Well, I was either incredibly naive or incredibly arrogant, and probably both. Because I just didn't know. And I
Yeah.
mean, I was published in my own field, but I didn't know what went into writing fiction. And I was an avid reader. So I thought, well, I kind of knew the structure. And I think because I was an avid reader, that does help when you start
Mhm, mhm.
writing. Uh, but I just wanted to aspire to a certain level I just felt I wanted to write to a certain level. And so I just started taking courses and going to conferences, and I was enjoying it along the way, but it took me a while to really develop my voice and to the level that I wanted. And still I'm a slow writer and I'm doing all the research, so it is what it is, but it's not as
Yeah,
easy as I thought it was. So
right, and
in
I think
fact,
I
the 12 years to publication was longer than my, 10 years from medical doctor to surgeon,
hmm.
actually longer. So,
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, and I think, I'm so glad you shared that, because I remember going to my first conference. It was in 1993, and they said, usually most people it takes about 10 to 12 years from the time they start writing until their first book is published. And I found that to be true. I think mine was about 9 years, but
mhm,
I think found that to be true for a lot of people. But it's also, you know where could you be 9 years from now? Like, you put in the dedication, and then you're able to write stories, and you have the skills now to touch people's hearts, to share the gospel in ways there's people picking up your book that you will never meet, and I think that's an amazing thing. So if it's on your heart, start. Maybe it'll be quicker. Maybe it'll be a little slower, but if God is calling you to do it, then definitely try.
Yes, I would agree. And
Yeah.
I
Okay.
can't really imagine what else I would be doing. I mean, my husband and I love to sing. We sing together, uh, in choirs, and, so we've had opportunity to sing lots of different places. In fact, we went with a choir here in Milwaukee on tour to Italy, and the last, uh, performance was in the Vatican.
Oh,
And that
wow.
Yeah, so that was an amazing, experience, and we also sang in these cute little towns in Sicily, and, where one of the that looked like a movie, one of the small towns, the priest had basically, I think, said to the people, "You will come," and the whole town showed up to our concert, and they had made us desserts, and it was just like out of a movie, where the whole town just shows up. And so we've had wonderful experiences singing in choirs. We've also sung in the Baltics. My husband is Latvian background, so we've had a chance to do that. We've also sung in big choirs. Like the Latvians are very known for their big choir singing, and so we were in Toronto in a 1,000 voice choir.
Oh, wow.
It's been a lot of fun. So we like to travel, so we get a chance to do that, and then so we have other things going on, and we have grandchildren, but the writing is definitely a commitment. So
Well, it sounds like you need, like, maybe with another series, tie in that singing and tie in those some of those trips and some of those experiences. That's amazing.
yeah, that's a good idea, actually.
Yeah, yeah. You should totally do that. And it was so fun to be able to see you in person and to know, like, "Oh, we're gonna talk later this week,"
Yes,
when I saw you.
yeah.
I love it. Okay, so go ahead again and give us the titles of the first 2 books
Okay.
and let us know, where we can connect with you, find the books, and they're very well written. I am enjoying them a lot. So, um, definitely put these on your to read list. But Linda, where can people go to connect with you, and then remind them of the titles of the books again?
Okay, so the titles of the books are A Certain Man, and I think you can probably see this. This is
Oh, yeah.
Certain Mercy, is the second one.
And the
And
covers are beautiful.
yes, Linda Fulkerson is our publisher, but she does all of our covers, and there are so many genres, and every cover looks like its own genre. She does a beautiful job. And then the third book will be A Certain Refuge, and you can get them on Amazon. All of our books are available on Kindle Unlimited.
Oh, nice.
And the way you can connect with me is usually basically my name. It's lindadindzans.com is my website. At Linda Dindzans is Instagram. Facebook is Linda Dindzans or Linda Dindzans author. I don't know if you've had this problem, but I have problems getting my people to go from my personal page
I know,
to
yes.
author page. So it's like, that's all right. I don't put anything.
Whatever, just come and find me, I'll be there.
Right,
You're
right.
both places.
Right. So, and X is at Linda Dinzant. So I think that's pretty well all the ways to connect with me.
I love it, and also, I always, like, tell people to go tell your librarians to order these. Usually, you can put in as your local library request because then it gets it circulating, and we discover more readers that way who fall in love with our books, so definitely do that too. But Linda, thank you so much for being here. I'm on chapter 14, but I just want to keep reading. So you've done a really good job hooking me. I got to figure out what's going to happen to these people that I'm caring about. So great
Okay,
job,
well,
and
you'll
thank
have
you
to
for
let me
being
know when
here.
you finish.
I will. Thank you so much, Linda.
And thank you for the opportunity.